Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Marcus. Welcome into the Man Room. We will get to episode 5 of the Man Room with comedian Seth Milstein in just one moment. I just wanted to put this little disclaimer on this track because, well, I'll be honest with you, I totally fucked it up. I don't know what happened. We were recording the entire thing through my webcam instead of through my microphones. It was a fiasco. You'd almost feel like I have zero professional experience with audio production, which is not the case, but it kind of sounds like it in this podcast. So I do apologize. Before you just hit stop right now and don't listen at all, take a listen. It's not bad. It's about Zoom quality audio, okay? So don't hold it against Seth Milstein. It was an awesome conversation. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, had a ton of fun up here in the Man Room. So listen to the episode and understand that the next time Seth comes in, you will hear the docent tones of his voice as they should sound in your ears. Thanks for listening to the Man Room. Let's get to the episode.
Grab a drink. This is the Man Room.
Welcome into the Man Room. Thanks for joining us today. I am your host, Marcus Bridges, and we've got a great show planned for you today. I'm super stoked about this one. Before we get into it, though, the same thing that we always got to talk about. Check us out at the website, www.themanroompodcast.com. You can find all of the links there, the YouTube page, the Spotify. We're on Anchor. We're on Stitcher. We're on every damn platform that they offer for podcasts. So I hope that I'm running out of them, and sooner or later, it'll just be every single one of them, and I can say every single one of them confidently, but that's only if people stop making up new ones. So check us out at all those places. If you want to donate to the show, it would be greatly appreciated. There's a donate button up at the top of the webpage. Once again, www.themanroompodcast.com. First and foremost today, we want to welcome into the studio Eugene, comedian and a mainstay there since long before I started doing comedy in this town. Great guy. I've worked with you on my radio show before. We've done some stand-up specials together. And I'm just so stoked to have you in here. My good buddy, Seth Milstein. Thanks for joining me in the Man Room today, dude.
Thanks for having me, Marcus. This is a lot of fun.
Hey, dude, I am actually having a lot of fun with it because, like, my wife kind of just all of a sudden told me, she's like, yeah, chase your dream, kind of gave me the reins. And I just kind of built like a fun house for adult children up here. So
this is a cool room. I don't know if there's a video component to this podcast, but this room is dope.
I hope to get one sooner or later. I feel like I have a webcam right now, but it's just kind of a dumpy webcam. I feel like if I'm going to do it, I got to do it right.
Sure, yeah.
Like if I had shitty grainy video and all these other fun toys, I feel like people would feel like I'm mailing it in.
Right, yeah. I understand.
So welcome in. Glad to have you here. It feels nice. You're only the second person out of, I think, 6 of these that I've done now that's actually been in person. So I'm very glad to have somebody at the house and kind of feel that bit of normalcy again. So.
Yeah. I've done so many Zoom chats, and it's just like, you can't land a joke on Zoom because there's a lag always.
Yes.
Somebody's fucking computer is not up to date, and you always end up getting some type of weirdness. So I like doing it in person if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about those voice over IP apps is they totally dictate who gets muted and when.
Right.
So you might be hitting your punchline and somebody will laugh and just kill the rest of it, because their mic modulates or something. So it's best to be live for sure. And that's hopefully the point. I mean, I didn't cram all this shit up here into the corner of this room so that I could just video chat,
Right,
I really want to have people up here. And that was kind of what the idea was built around. I mean, back when things were normal, I used to host a lot of people, football games were big tailgaters and everything. So used to have quite a few people over here. And actually just recently I yanked the hide-a-bed out of here to give me more room to put toys in. So I'm excited about it, man. And as always, first things first in the Man Room, as you take your first sip, I'm going to go ahead and take mine. You have provided the drinks today, which is that's something that I strive to do for people. And I'm just absolutely ecstatic to be trying some very nice whiskey that you brought. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is a dear friend of mine got this for me for my birthday, and it's Bull Run whiskey from the Bull Run Distillery in Portland, and it's aged 13 years, and then they put it into a Pinot barrel and age it for another 7 months.
Dude.
And so you get this like rich flavor. There's I always smell chocolate whenever I give it a whiff, but
Oh yeah.
everybody kind of has their own interpretation, and most of my friends are, we drink Jameson, so we don't know good whiskey, but it is the base.
That's great.
Yeah,
man.
but no, this has been really tasty, and it's funny because I give it to my roommate's not much of a hard alcohol guy. He's more of a beer guy, and he actually didn't want to throw up after he took a sip of it. I was like, "That's good for whiskey for you."
That's good, man. I like it because it's like I get the really really flavorful whiskey on the front, but I almost do get the feeling of I've just taken a sip of wine as I swallow. I definitely can taste the Pinot in there. So
yeah, we used to have that brewery out in was out in Cottage Grove, Coburg. And now I'm forgetting the name of it, but they used to do a beer that was like a light beer, but they did it in Pinot barrels.
Really?
And it was just, it tasted like grapes. It was
awesome.
amazing. Yeah.
That's
really
awesome. Good. I should drink more wine. I don't, the red mouth thing gets me, the red teeth. And also I just feel like sometimes, I feel like sometimes I'm such like a social and excited drinker that if somebody pours me a nice bottle or a nice glass of wine, it's probably a little bit lost on me. Like if you line me up 10 or 12 to try, like I'm probably going to be able to tell the difference. But, $30-$40 a glass is like, I don't need that. Spend that on a steak. All right. Give me a Pepsi or something.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way because I've been drinking, like when you do comedy, if you drink at all, you end up having more drinks than you ever plan to every single night. And so I like switched. At one point I was like, I can't do IPAs anymore. I gotta have like cheap beer that has like lower alcohol content. So I became like a PBR guy, and now it's like good beer just tastes like trash to me. Just like, give me the red, white, blue.
PBR can change you, man.
Yeah,
I know that's the case. That's funny, man. Yeah, the IPAs, I love them, dude, and I get all up in them sometimes, and sometimes there's those mornings after where you're like, that's why I tried to dial back the IPAs, because you get that IPA headache that it feels like somebody hit you with like a Louisville Slugger T-ball bat right between the eyes, and it just stays around all day. You can't drink water your way out of it.
Yeah, it's like nausea and headache the whole day.
Yeah.
And that's not a fun place to be.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I go to the Coors Lights when I like Pabst. It's one of those beers that I drank so much in college.
Sure.
And it's the same way with and I'm kind of glad you don't really see this stuff around anymore. I think it might have only been in business when I was in college because of me and my friends, and that was Milwaukee's Best.
Oh yeah.
Those two I got my fill on because we used to go to the beer docks here in town in Eugene and buy that shit for $3 a case, and you'd fill up the whole back end of a truck with it and just drive away as like a irresponsible, about to go commit crimes college student.
Well, I started my drinking years in Indiana, and that's like, there's like this trifecta of horrible beers, because you got Milwaukee's Best from the north, you got Fall City from I think that was in like Evansville or something like that, and then it's just all shitty beer. And that, like, back then, and not to sound like the ultimate hipster, but back then we would drink Pabst because it was $2 at the bar, and everything else, like the next beer up was like a Killian's Red for $3, and so I was like, well, Killian's Red's shitty anyway, so I'll just drink the Pabst. It's fine.
Yeah.
And people used to make fun of us for drinking Pabst, and when I went back a couple of years ago just to visit some friends, I ordered a Pabst at the bar, and the guy was like, "You sure? Like, we have a lot of beer." And I was like, "No, I just need something that won't knock me out for the rest of the night, for one beer." I drank a couple of Guinness last night just to celebrate St. Patty's Day. And, it was like one of those things. It's like, I love the taste of this, but it's heavy as hell, like it is not a friendly beer to my stomach, my head, or anything like that. So I like the lighter bodied beers.
Yeah, man. I also think that choosing the PBR because it's $2 is like a financial decision. And
sure,
you should totally feel comfortable telling the bartender that when it happens, because it's like, I have this thing in me that's like, I want to make good financial decisions, but I also want the people that have to provide me with those from a service perspective to understand that's why I'm making the decision,
Yeah, there was a point in time, like when I first started like drinking at bars, like in my early 20s, it was like you want to impress the bartender for some reason. It's like, yeah, you can order as much Tanqueray and tonic as you want,
Right.
but by the end of the night, you're still the guy that he's got to kick out because you're barfing in the stall. So,
and you get that feeling in your early 20s, like you're the only one to do it.
right.
Like, I'm going to step into this well-established bar,
Yeah.
and I'm going to change everybody's mind about drinking.
I'm going to come in here with a virgin stomach and order a Glenlivet 12-year and try to not make a face every time I take a sip.
Oh, man. And we've seen it too. You and I, we used to do some stand-up together at a college bar here in town, and I talked with Chris Castles about this too when he was on the podcast a few weeks ago. The old Donkey Gong comedy at Taylor's Bar and Grill.
I just realized I'm still friends with Donk Gong on Facebook.
One of few, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's nobody's updated anything in a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys want to get around to that. But
Turns out the show met an abrupt end about 6 years ago. I know there was a few people wondering about it, but no, Donkey Kong Comedy was put on by the radio show that I used to do with my buddy Drew and Tanner down here, and it was a comedy gong show at a college bar on a Monday night, and it was basically there to fill time between when the dinner crowd kind of fizzled out, and then the I want to rub my genitals on other people crowd fizzled in.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember distinctly one time they left both the TVs on that were on the stage, so we were doing stand-up between two TVs, and it's a gong show, so it's like you're the whole time, not me so much because I was the guy that was my co-host on the radio, so he kind of gave me free reign, and there were some times when I was like, well, he's not going to gong me. I'm going to see how bad I can actually be and see if I can get gonged, you know? And I think I watched one of the TVs for like 2 minutes in one of my sets. You know?
I think we had like a running thing that was like who could get gonged the least out of the comedy crew. And I think that I was like pretty high up because I only got gonged once or twice.
Yeah.
And I was, but like one of them was just a night where Drew was gong heavy, because it was a dead night and everyone was kind of pissed off that we couldn't like get a real reaction from the crowd, and so he was just kind of like lightly slapping the gong every time somebody was wrapping up their set anyway.
Sure. So you felt like you kind of got robbed on that one.
Yeah, I was like, well, that's fine. That one counts for everybody.
Yeah,
so.
right. Well, that's comedy on a Monday night in a town or city, if you want to call it Eugene. You know, you're kind of telling jokes to like part of the fun of that gong show was that it was working on your material in front of other people that were knowledgeable about working on jokes and workshopping their material and trying to get better. But every now and then, especially if you were going in there kind of working on the same thing and really trying to dial it in, it's like you told the same 7 people the same 7 jokes every Monday.
Heard it. Like, we're like whispering the punchlines to ourselves while you're on stage and shit.
Yeah. But, you know, actually it'd been a while for me. I didn't actually see the stage after we ended the radio show until, gosh, I was doing trivia night for a college bar there for a little while. But we did a Laughed and Loaded special is what we called it.
That was a ton of fun.
It was such an amazing show. I was working for a company called White Label Extracts at the time. And this was back when rules in the cannabis industry were kind of shaky, and we saw a loophole, and I went to a meeting one day and I was like, we need to do a comedy show. Like let me and the sales manager take this over and set it up. And they gave us, you know, a budget, and we had Alex Adney, we had Mike McGowan, and then Billy Wayne Davis came in to headline it. And this show, I'm not sure that people that weren't there really understand what it was, because you walked in and there was a big pizza cart there, like a pizza truck selling slices of pizza. And that guy would sprinkle fresh weed on your pizza and put it in the oven and decarb it for you. So you had like a cannabis edible pizza right there on the go. And after you walked into the place, it was nothing but dab bars with concentrates and free joints all over the place. And if you were ever more than 5 feet from a bong, it was because you were doing something wrong. Right. You know? Yeah. And
I didn't smoke before I went on stage because I'm like worthless if I get high before I go on stage. But I was in the green room and Billy Wayne was taking dabs like the entire time. And they, like at a certain point I walked on stage and I was just like, oh, I'm high.
It's a pretty small green room.
Yeah, it was really small. And I had like an out of body experience that night, like where I just watched myself do 20 minutes of comedy. Like, who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are, buddy? But like it was, and also I had tragedy that night. That was the night after my girlfriend left me to move back to California, which was an abrupt thing. Like when I woke up the day before that show, I was in love, and then by the end of the day before that show, she was gone.
Oh my God,
so
dude! And you still came to perform. You didn't say anything about that.
No, I like Mike knew and Billy knew, and that was it. And yeah, and that was another thing. It was so cathartic, to just be like, oh, like I've been doing this long enough that like something that huge isn't going to ruin my set. Like I could definitely see it doing it even a year before that.
Yeah.
But, like I was just like, I know what this show is. It's a weed show. I'm gonna do all my best weed jokes, and like I said, I was so high that I just kind of like my body performed comedy while my mind was like, I'm sad.
It was that sense memory thing that you have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
and it was all jokes that I've done before because your old boss Nick at White Label, he saw me like 3 days before that show, and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna do all those bits you did at the comedy roast or the canvas roast thing," and I was like, "Oh, well, I was gonna do a whole new set, but I guess I'll do those." You're kind of flipping the bill for this whole thing, so I ended up doing like this almost the same exact set that I had done like a year earlier for a different event, but yeah, it was still a blast, and I walked away from that like, okay, comedy is like therapeutic in my life for sure, because I was able to like put the emotions on the shelf for a little bit.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't sometimes always think about that, like on the day to day, about how you might need something like that to kind of, bridge the gap between a really bad day and the next one, whether it's going to be good or bad.
It's just validation, for if you're on stage and you tell a joke and everyone laughs, then you had a thought that you put together into a workable piece of performance art or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it worked. Like the people related to you. So like it's like, well, yeah, she left, but these guys are all here.
My mom still thinks I'm cool.
Yeah. Do you guys want to come home with me tonight? I want to be the small spoon. I'm very fragile right now.
I got a 6-pack of beer. We can share them. Yeah, man. Well, and it was a one of a kind thing too, because I don't know that you'll ever get to, and maybe you will. I don't know that I'll ever get to stand on stage in front of 200 sets of eyes that are so red and just so baked. You could have gone up there and been like, like Dan Aykroyd from what's that movie? Popcorn. Gross Point Blank, just say a word and they're going to love it. And I hadn't been on stage for years, and all I did was host. So, I had 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And I was terrified because I was so out of practice.
Yeah.
And it turns out that all they needed was a mildly competent person up there to get them from comic to comic, and they were totally happy. So
yeah, I don't think the hosting position on a comedy show gets enough credit, because there is an art to it. You have to be the guy. You're the control in the experiment of comedy. So you have to get them back in if Mike McGowan takes them way out and they don't know what the fuck is going on, especially since they're high as fuck because they've been eating weed pizza the entire time. Then the host is the guy that's like, hey, remember, this is how this goes. This is how my voice sounds, and there's gonna be another guy. He's gonna weird you out too. And then I'll be back after that. I think it's I heard I have a friend that was a comic in Canada, and she moved to LA, and she said that the host is like the position that everybody's trying to get to.
Really?
And the middle is like the one that everybody's at. Everybody has their 20 minutes, and that's why you're in the game. But then, the headliner is obviously the guy who's worked in the industry for the longest amount of time. And then the host is the one that's like the more high paid and more respected position, because they're the ones that keep the show on track. And I was like, well, aren't you weird up there? But that's cool.
It's not a bad thing to aspire to. See, if you would have told me that I was responsible for the control right before I went up, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
Because what did happen is Mike McGowan took him way out to sea.
Oh, yeah.
Kicked them all off the boat.
He always does.
He kicked them all off the boat, and I can't wait to have him in here too. I'm out to him. I'm hoping sooner or later we'll be able to get him in as well and talk about this, because it was, like I said, it was a one-of-a-kind experience for me. And we were blessed with some amazing comics that night. You guys all killed it.
Billy did an hour and a half
at least,
and like was taking dabs on stage in the middle of the set. It was like one of the most amazing sets I'd ever seen. I had a friend that couldn't get in that night, and he was waiting outside, and it was like just starting to get cooler. And he's like, dude, he's like texting me. He's like, how long are you gonna be? I was like, I'm not leaving.
I'm not staying.
This is amazing. This should have been over 20 minutes ago, but I'm not fucking leaving. It'll probably be another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
now.
when your headliner's so high, and I mentioned this to Chris Castles too, when your headliner's so high that he forgets the host's name, which is the only one that's been mentioned multiple times every night, or every single set, he started calling me Eugene when I was loading his bong for him, which made perfect sense. I mean, it's a great nickname, so I'll take it. But that was a fun show, man. I was looking at your Facebook page a little bit, and I saw that right before the world stopped being the world as we knew it, you actually did a show with Shane Torres at Lucky's.
We did. It was really the night before. Like it was the 12th of March, and it was part of. I've been doing shows for a year before that with my friend Rudy Tibersi, and we have this company called Just Comedy, and we were just trying to bring bigger acts to Eugene, and that was actually one of our smaller shows for venue availability reasons more than anything. But yeah, that was a show that we were kind of expecting to have like 150 people at, and then this happens, and then we ended up with like 40 or 50 people, which was great. I mean, it was like a really nice note to like end comedy on, you know. I'm glad that I have a fond memory, so that when stuff starts happening again, I want to go back.
Sure.
Because I was like, what if my last show was just a shitty open mic at fucking Blind Pig or something?
Right.
You know? But yeah, that was a really wonderful show, and it was so weird because like all this shit's happening, and they're saying we're going to close things down. And like America had never experienced anything like that. So like we didn't, I think most people just didn't believe it was real. It was like shock or whatever. And, but like the day of the show, like I had two people like private message me, and they were like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea for you to do it. And I was like, well, and then, you know, Rudy backed out at the last minute because his mom was sick recently. Like she had a lung thing.
Oh, wow.
And so he was like, I don't want to risk it, you know, because he lives on the same property as his mom. And so I was like, all right, I'll host the show by myself. But then like, you know, like Shane called me when he got off the plane, and he's like, so should I rent a car? And I was like, the venue hasn't canceled. I think we're good. We've sold a lot of tickets, you know. And he was like, all right. And then he was like, calls me again. I'm in the car. Should I start driving? I was like, I think if you're good to do it, I think we can do it. And it was like the last show, and I was sweating bullets for 3 weeks after that show, because I was like, I just didn't want to be the reason somebody got sick.
Sure.
And just that fear, and you know, because like we're doing this to make people happy. You know, like we don't want to kill anybody.
Right, we don't want to kill anybody on the way. I mean, we want to kill you with laughter.
Yeah, but. So it was like this thing where I was really stressed out, and so after that, I didn't try to push forward with any type of shows or anything like that, because I just wanted to be safe. And a couple other people did open mics when we reopened for that brief period of time.
Uh-huh.
And it was nice to just go and kind of scrub the rust off, but like I mean, that was the last real show that I've done.
That's crazy. And that's been just at a year and 4 days right now. That's crazy, man. Well, I think that you made a good point, though. First of all, I got to say, great job bringing Shane Torres to town. I think he's great. He's so funny.
He's one of my favorites. He's one of the few people that like I got to like work with when he was like nobody, when we were both open micers. And he just, I mean, the way that guy can put words together is just so great. And he knows who he is and how the audience sees him, and like those are all like super important things in comedy. He's one of the smartest and funniest joke writers I've ever met.
I'll be honest that one of the hardest parts about Anthony Bourdain's death for me was that his bit about Guy Fieri he might not do anymore because he talks a little bit of shit about Anthony Bourdain. And when I think it's one of the best bits out there about the culture on the internet, you know, it says so much. So what a great comedian. And I'm sure you guys with Just Comedy, are you still going to pursue that goal once things open back up?
Yeah, we actually just had Rudy and I kind of got down and had a discussion about it. And I think we're planning to just do another full year in 22.
Okay.
And so we're kind of in the early stages. Everybody's so tentative right now. Nobody wants to put anything on the books yet, but we're talking to people, and we're starting to book 22.
Yeah.
And I think until then, we're just going to try to get the Eugene scene up and going again, get a couple mics going again. And because that's the thing, like, I mean, at this point, like, people are asking me, like, when are you going to book another thing? I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to do this again. You know, like, before I try to pay other people to do it, I want to figure out how to do it again.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's just, I think we want to scrub the rust off. And, but yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. Like, we have like a small group of comics that we do a video chat every week, you know, every Friday. And I don't know that I would have been able to make it through this without that crew. And I probably said the same about a couple of them too.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you know, no one had experienced anything like this before, like where it's just like, nope, you're kind of in a prison cell, but it looks like you're a partner.
Right. You better find something fun to do.
Yeah,
and that's,
exactly.
I mean, hey, once again, the whole idea of this podcast was born out of that. Not having a job, wanting to not work for anybody else anymore, and also wanting to feel like I was doing something that I kind of enjoyed. But how hard is that when what you enjoy is comedy and you can only tell it to your wall or computer screen? I mean, it must turn you inside out.
Yeah, I mean, I have musician friends, and I know that they're feeling the same thing because performing is just performing.
Yep.
But I'm like, yeah, you can fucking write a song and know that it's done when you're finished writing it, you know, like, because it sounds like a song, you know. I don't know if a joke's good until, like, I get feedback from people, you know.
Right. And if you're like me, I don't know if you're like this. You're probably not, because you're a much better comedian and writer than I am. And I tend to get attached to the first thing I write. Mm-hmm. And then when I get the first feedback, especially if it's from like my wife, I'll be like, well, you just must not get what I'm trying to say. You know, it's like, it's obviously not me doing a disservice. It's you. And that's such a bad mindset to have. But
I think that's a pretty common instinct, especially like in the beginning when you're like just trying to like figure it out or whatever. It's such a specific or it's such a common instinct to have that, like, I wrote this thing and like this makes sense to me, and then like that's the thing of it. It's relatable. It's got to be relatable to everybody, you know. And so that, you know, like I have friends that are like, they kind of like want to be more edgy and shit like that. And I'm like, why would you as a comedian make it your goal to piss people off? I get like if you're angry at an open mic and you just want to rant or vent a little bit, that's fine. But, you know, like if someone's paying you to make people laugh, don't go out there and be an asshole to everybody.
Right.
You know, it's but yeah, I think everybody does their own thing, and you know, some people are really good at being an asshole.
They are. I mean, insult comedy is a thing, which it's got to be, especially in this day and age when, like, if you insult somebody in this day and age, they literally almost have the ammo to make you stop doing what you do for a living.
Yeah.
But there's still people out there that do it. And the roast battle stuff, like when you just get two people up on stage and just tear each other apart, I kind of like that idea because you're targeted with your insults and you know that the person that you're going up against isn't going to ruin.
They know what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Where crowd work, you're kind of fishing in a pond and you don't know if there's piranha or trout down there, and who knows what you're going to haul out. I mean, we experienced that a lot at the Donkey Gong show because that wasn't a comedy bar; it was a grind time bar. It wasn't ever meant for us to be on that stage. Yeah,
I've always felt that way. Like a roast is well, first of all, I always used to joke because people would want to do roasts around here, and I'm like, the funniest part about a roast when you watch it on Comedy Central is that everybody knows what Justin Bieber's been up to all year.
Right.
So, but it's like you're making like all these like really inside jokes about these dickheads that you hang out with, but nobody else fucking knows. Who gives a shit? It's just two assholes yelling at each other on stage after a certain point. But so whenever I was asked to do roast stuff, I would always write the jokes about the person's appearance, you know, because I'm just like, that's the one thing everyone can see.
Sure.
You know, so, and, you know, it's like, if you're overweight, you're expecting the fat jokes. You know, if you're bald, you're expecting the bald jokes. If you dress like a schlub, then, you know, you're going to get some goodwill jokes. And that's what it is.
That's what it is. Exactly.
But everybody kind of knows where you're coming from, at least. But yeah, we did a roast one time and McGowan was on it, and he just did some of the most like brutal personal attacks, and it was like shit that was based on conversations that we had privately and shit.
So he just aired everybody's dirty laundry.
Yeah, basically, like there was like three of us up there, but he was, it was like all this shit about like how because I have kids, I have to just watch everybody get big and move to better markets and comedy and shit, and I was like, yeah, that's all true. That's all really, all right.
That's all stuff I told you in confidence, but thank you. Glad that you were able to bring it up here on a microphone in front of people.
Right. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, I can't wait to have him on. Mike McGowan, I'm so glad that he came back. I was so super bummed when the dude moved to Philly, and when he said, I think he posted on Facebook about how it just wasn't for him anymore, and his roots are in Oregon. I was just like, good, we're getting him back.
We're getting one of the good ones back.
We are, and it sounds like one that might stick around because Eugene comedy is kind of a lot of turnover. I mean, a lot of people aren't sticking around, especially if they're going to pursue it. They're going to try to move out of here.
That's what I tell people, like the younger people in the scene. I'm like, if you don't have anything tying you to this town, then 3 years max. Like, get your feet on the ground. Get your beak wet, like understand what this is, but then you have to go to like a secondary market because you're definitely not going to be ready to jump from Eugene to New York,
right?
Or Eugene to LA. You got to go to Austin, go to Portland, whatever you got to do. Atlanta is real hot right now. Probably where I'd go if I didn't have kids and I had 20 more years back.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Austin. I was talking with Chris Castles about it, and it's kind of funny. He moved there 5-6 years ago, never expecting that the whole comedy world was just going to descend upon Austin.
Yeah,
after COVID,
it ended up being the spot to be. I have a buddy down there as a musician, and he was like, dude, come down and crash on my couch. Joe Rogan's opening up a comedy club here, and I was like, I don't think he's gonna put me up. I gotta be there for like 6 months before I get a spot,
Yeah, but I think the thing about it is once you get to a place like that and you can kind of rub shoulders a little bit. That's one thing that Chris said is like, he's like, I might not be friends with these people, but I'm in the same room every now and then, and sooner or later it will happen. And that's just what you hope for talented comedians, is that the right person sees them, the right person gives them a shot or whatever. And I mean, dude, how old are your kids? You got to be.
My youngest is 14. He just turned 14. So I got 4 more years.
4 years,
then,
right?
Yeah. And then I'm just going to try to talk him into going to college at a cool place.
There you go.
That's a good comedy scene, so I'll just follow him.
And some college towns are great for comedy. It just depends on which one. You don't want to end up like in Yukon.
Right.
You just go to Connecticut and then you can't tell a joke because you're going to get thrown off the stage. But
I have a good friend that does comedy and lives in Olympia, Washington, and I'm like, that's close enough to Seattle, and it's also a nice, calm, quiet college town. Like that would be like kind of a nice area to be in. And then of course, like moving to Nashville has been blowing up lately with comedy. I mean, pre-COVID and all that, and the South, like Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana has like this weird little comedy collective that's been doing some really cool shows and everything. So it's like, it's weird, but I think, and that's like what Rudy and I wanted to do with Eugene, is that we wanted to make it like evident that a small town is not a place where comedy can't happen.
Right.
And so like that year before the Shane Torres show, that was the last of the shows that we did, but we had Fortune Feimster, we had Jonah Ray from Mystery Science Theater 3000, we had Kyle Kinane.
I was going to say, I remember that.
Maria Bamford was like one of the first people that did it.
She's so funny. We had her on the radio show, dude. She is so funny.
Yeah, and then her feature act that she would bring with her, Jackie Cation, had like this really awesome podcast with Laurie Kilmartin, who writes for Conan, and they came up and did their own show that was just the two of them. And so like that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to bring in like these bigger names and make people that like comedy in this town like realize that this is a thing. And so then if anybody like ever had the inkling to try it, they would know, all right, well, we have these open mics. There's these two guys, I've seen them at the Kyle Kinane show, like
right.
They do shit. And at the same time, we were also trying to get like our friends that have been working their asses off here in Eugene doing comedy to get like these opportunities to perform with these bigger acts. So we, you know, like I don't know if you know Tyler Jones. He's one of the newer comics in the past 3 years or 4 years now. But his first comedy show he ever saw was Brian Posehn, and then we put him up as the opener for Brian Posehn.
Oh, that's awesome!
Fucking crushed it.
That's awesome.
I was like, I'd never been more proud because that's a guy that I saw him when he was when his hand would shake when he was on the mic, his first couple of open mics, and I got to watch him over the first year or so of his career, just learn how to do this and then get good at it and then get confident and then be brave and then by the time we gave him that show, I was like, I hope he's ready.
Kind of throwing him in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, he just went in and really fucking assassinated that audience that night. It was so good.
That's great, man.
And we had Todd Barry. One of his favorite comics was one of the local comics. Todd was his favorite comic, and he was another guy that had been working a long time and had never really had the opportunity to do anything big like that. So we're like, Bert, you open for Todd, and he crushed it.
That's
he was
awesome.
Just ready to do it, And so we were working our way through our local comics to give them all opportunities, and then we only got to do I think total of 10 or 11 shows.
You're right up to that mic. I think it's cutting out on you a little bit. No, you're okay.
But we only did about I think we only did about 10 or 11 shows, but it was every one of them was awesome and special.
Sure.
And gave local comics a little bit of an opportunity to do something.
It's great to have a couple guys that have that vision like you and Rudy, because I feel like that's really what Eugene comedy has needed for years. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like if the talent is there and the want to and the venues and stuff like that is there, there's just not somebody that kind of manages it almost that might even be a bad term, manager, because that almost sounds like you're working for somebody when really this is an artistic adventure. But
right. I think, we've definitely had people come in and out that had amazing things to add to the scene. And there was a comic, Jane Malone, who hosted the Kyle Kinane show. Mm-hmm. She's a go-getter, and she's an amazing graphic artist. So when she came into the scene, even though she was new at comedy, all of a sudden we had great posters, and then she got really she was good at looking at the scene and seeing what needed to be done. And over the years, I think for me, it was all just trial and error. Mm-hmm. Everything that I've done right, I did wrong 5 times before it. But I was just the person who was that persistent about it. When I started, speaking of Chris Castles, he was the only game in town, and he would really put together a show once every couple months.
Right.
And there were so few people doing it that he would just kind of let anybody that wanted to go up and do time go up. And so the first show I ever got booked on was, he booked me on it, and I did 5 minutes. I was the second guy on the show, and then the headliner went up, and then 7 people went after the headliner. And I think it was just because everybody was drunk and high. Yeah. He was just yeah, go ahead. There was a guy that brought his laptop up to read his jokes that he had typed out. I was it was a mess. But also, that's what you could get away with back then.
Yep.
And then when I started doing stuff, Chris and I worked together a lot, and it was he kind of showed me a little bit of what to do and a little bit of what not to do, mm-hmm. and because he was doing the same thing, it was a lot of trial and error. And then so when I first got my first room, I had a Oak Street Speakeasy, which isn't even a bar anymore. I was all my places that I started doing comedy don't exist anymore. It's Diablo's and Oak Street
Diablo's.
But both of those places I started around the same time, and I was booking those rooms. And I just knew what I liked, I knew who to book because I knew who I thought was funny. And I was always pretty on with that. But then it was all the managing of the money and all that stuff. That stuff was, I knew that was important because I had seen other people fuck that up.
Yeah.
And so, I've seen people like guarantee someone $100 and then give them 40.
Ugh.
And the look on that guy's face while he's going back to a big city to tell everybody that you're a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, right.
To work with you. And so I was like, all right, always have all of the money that I've guaranteed people in my pocket, no matter what. Like that'll come out of my end if we don't make enough money on the show.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was putting good enough shows together that I didn't have to pay out of pocket too often. But yeah.
That's good, and that's also like commendable that you're willing to take that bullet and say like, look, it's on me. If I'm not going to take it out of the dude that traveled here's money.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you know Derek Sheen.
Yes.
Yeah, Derek Sheen is one of the funniest human beings on the planet. The first time I ever worked with him, I was sure that his name was going to bring people in because I thought he was so funny. And then I was like, I'm a comedy nerd. So I know who this guy is. Nobody knows who this guy is yet. Because it was back before he was working for Posehn, before he was working for Patton Oswalt and all that. Mm-hmm. And so I booked him at Diablo's and we were doing a $5 show. I guaranteed him $130. And we got 5 people. So,
so you paid him $100?
No, I paid him $130 because I walked out to the ATM and fucking got money.
Gotcha.
I was like, my wife's gonna be mad at me tomorrow, but I can deal with her.
Right.
I don't want this guy going back to Seattle to tell everyone not to work with Seth Milstein, So it was just a matter of like giving a shit enough to like put your ass on the line a little bit.
Sure. We actually did a fat camp show with Derek Sheen at Wetlands, I think, with Mac Chase. Were you on that
I wasn't on that show. I was on a different one that you did. That was one of the fat camp shows. I can't remember who.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember Derek Sheen just absolutely killing it in that room. He's so funny.
So good.
And it's funny that you told me about your buddy Tyler, who's a Posehn fan.
Yeah.
I got kind of lucky. So
you guys worked with Posehn at the Wow Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that show. And I was like, who the fuck got it? The Donkey Show?
We kind of cheated our way into that one. There's no question because we're like, wait, Posehn's coming? Who's his opener? Because both Drew and I just want to go do stand-up so bad at that point. Like, who's his opener? And the guy's like, there's no one listed. I was like, call his manager. Yeah. We want on that show. Yeah. Like that's all I said, and it happened. And
you have a radio show. You have good leverage.
Yeah. Dude, it was so funny. He came into the radio show that day, and we had Mario Kart set up on the N64 in there. Uh-huh. And Brian Posehn, just a huge human, walks in, says hi to all of us, does an about face, and looks directly at the wall, which is not facing any of us. And he goes, "Is that Mario Kart?" It's like, yeah, man. Yeah. And we gave him the controller, and he just sat there and played for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Super nice dude.
He's a sweetheart. He really
so
is.
funny. And it's like, for me, I look at that and I'm like, that guy was on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, that guy's on Seinfeld and he's in here right now.
When we did the show with him, Derek was his feature. He always kind of does the road with Derek when he's in the Pacific Northwest. And so I go way back with Derek. So it was really fun. They show up. And it was clear that he had just been woken up out of a nap to go to the venue. And so I just showed them to the green room. And like, he didn't say a fucking word to anybody. I think he whispered something to Derek at one point. And I was like, this is a bummer because this guy's like kind of an asshole. And then he, like, right before he had to go on stage, he kind of perked up and he was like, all right, is the good room? Is the room full? And I was like, yeah, room's packed. And he went up on stage, crushed. And then he got off stage. He signed anything that anybody wanted to sign. He took a picture with everybody that wanted to take a picture with him. Then we smoked weed in the green room until like 2 a.m. And then it was like until about 1. And then he goes, is there food? Is there food anywhere that's open? And I was like, yeah, we can get food. And I took him to Mandy's, which had just opened, which was 24 hours. So, and then he was so chill. I grew up watching Mr. Show. Like my late teens, early 20s, I watched so much Mr. Show. And so like those quotes are just like come out of me at certain points or whatever. And at one point I quoted something from Mr. Show, and then I just like realized, mortified, that this was one of the writers and actors on Mr. Show. And he, without skipping a beat, is like, I remember when we wrote that sketch, and then tells this great story about like all these fucking cool people.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, this guy's. And then like after we were at Mandy's, there was a party that like a bunch of people wanted me to try to bring Prasein to, and I was like, that party is probably still going on if you want to go. And he wanted to go, and Derek was like, dude, I got to drive you back to Seattle tomorrow. So Derek was the one, like, I mean, I won't call him a party pooper because I honestly was not in any mood to go deal with more people. But it was funny that like Prasein was kind of game to do it. He's just a sweet guy that likes hanging out and having a good time.
I mean, in the green room, when Drew and I went in there, we actually weren't expecting him to be in there as early as he was, because we went in there like 30 or 40 minutes before our set just to start going over our notes.
Yeah.
And we just kind of burst into the green room thinking it's just going to be us. And here he is laying on the couch reading a sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
And there's a box of Voodoo Donuts next to him. And Drew, we kind of try to lighten the mood. Drew he's always got a smile on his face. He's always wanting to talk to people and to engage people. And he's like, all right, Voodoo Donuts. And he opens it up. We're kind of looking through, and he and I are chatting. And you can tell that we're not necessarily annoying Brian Posehn, but also he would prefer it if we weren't there, know? And we sat down and we were going over our notes, and it came time for us to go on. It was about, 10 minutes. And he looks over at the Voodoo Donut box, and he goes, is that a donut shaped like a dick? And it was just like, that's perfect. It was. Yes, that's exactly what it was. And those are my Brian Posehn memories. And, it wasn't my best set, but I was at the Wow Hall opening for somebody that I never should have been on stage with before, or never deserved to be on stage with, sorry. And that it's funny you talked about Castles in the early stuff, because Castles did that to me. He kind of grabbed me by the shoulders one day in the studio and was like, you need to go try stand-up.
Yeah.
Come do this show I'm booking for at Diablo's.
Uh-huh.
And that show you were on was called Andy Andrus Ruins Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And so my very first comedy show was, I shared the stage with the likes of yourself, Chris Castles, Christine Levine.
Yep. The likes of myself. That wasn't worth bragging about back then, for sure. I remember I did a joke about cocaine that night, and it was the first time that Andy told me that I had a good set.
Well, I remember it too because a porn shop sponsored it, so there was a gigantic, cartoonish butt plug on the stage, and it was like, that's the last thing I needed. I was going up there to try to spend my 10 minutes, and I have to look at all of these things that I just, as like a mid-20s kid, I can't not look at that, and I want to talk about it. But I actually found some footage of that recently, and I was telling Castles, it's just me. We didn't film anybody else that night, but it's right there on that little chip.
Yeah.
And then I also have it on a hard mini DV cassette. And if I can ever afford the technology to transfer that and get it digital, I probably will. But I don't know, man. It's cringy as hell.
If I remember, was that in the basement of Diablo's?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that was the night that I saw Andy do one of the best sets I've ever seen him do. And it was like for really like 20 people or something like that. It was not a huge room. But he had this one joke that I won't even go into the subject matter of it because it's an Andy Andrus joke. But it was like one of those cringy subject matters, but he had nailed it so well that nobody cringed. Like everybody like went with him on the journey.
Sure.
I saw him do that one time because Andy, if your listeners don't know Andy, he doesn't pull any punches. So he had this set one time where he came to the Wandering Goat, which I don't know if you remember Wandering Goat, very liberal, super
coffee company, not a bar, right?
It's a coffee shop. I mean, they sold like 3 beers on tap or whatever, but but it was very much like it was very much like a PC environment.
Right.
And he walks in after he had gotten shut down at another show. Like somebody wouldn't let him go up at another show because they thought he was too Andy Andrus. And so he was like, he came in hot. He was fuming and he's like, yeah, this fucking bitch wouldn't let me go on. And then he looks at me and he goes, put me up. And I was like, if I say no, I lose a friend right now. But if I say yes, I lose this venue.
Lose the show.
And I was like, well, fuck it. It was a good run we had here, but I'd rather have the friend than the venue. And so I let him go up, and he did this bit that he's been doing for years about how we need to take all the child molesters in America and send them over to Africa and the Middle East to fuck all the child soldiers, which is just such a fun. But when he's on, he can deliver it in the way that the audience will go with him, and he did it that night, and I could not believe they were like wooing afterwards. So, and I'm like, this is a hipster coffee shop. Nobody woos. You're lucky if you get a golf clap.
Right.
That's how you know you killed it, if you get a golf clap.
Somebody looks up from their iMac at you.
Exactly. I've definitely done those shows. But yeah, he crushed it that night. Those were like my two favorite times watching him perform, honestly.
That's great. I really love how this is going to work out because you and Chris Castles are going to book in the Andy Andrist episode.
Oh,
Chris Castles
awesome.
Aired the week that you and I are recording this, and then Andy will air next week. And
Awesome.
You'll be on the other side of that. And now we've heard stories from both of you guys about Andy, and we've also heard Andy recount his version of the same story. Like,
Right.
Chris told me a story about how one of the directors of one of Andy's specials called him one day and was flipping out because Andy hadn't been doing what he was supposed to do. And Andy on this podcast talks about when that call was made, he was playing basketball with two 10-year-olds in a park somewhere and supposed to be working too, not to mention. So I think that by the time this one airs, people will be well familiar with Andy Andrist, and he will be a frequent guest on this if he will come in and do the podcast because...
Well, he's got a great podcast.
Issues with Andy, right. And that's actually the next thing I wanted to get to is I know that you've been doing some work on some podcasts, and do you have your own
I don't have anything right now. No. This whole pandemic thing is like, well, we have forever to put something together. And now it's like, it feels like it's almost over. So,
we didn't do anything. Shit.
What I did throughout the pandemic is I got really into writing. I write for Savage Henry magazine, and I've been doing that for about 5 years. But, so I was doing a lot of that, and I was reading a lot more. And then I was like, oh yeah, I like literature and I write like to be funny. So I actually started like giving a shit about my writing, and like I bet I could be funny and make it like a reasonable thing to read too.
Right.
Like,
Novel idea.
Not just jokes, but actually have some content in there beyond the humor. And so I got really into writing and reading more, and like but I kept teeter-tottering back and forth between like, am I gonna start a new podcast, or am I gonna start a Twitch stream or something? Because Benji Wright, he had a pretty successful Twitch show for a while, and but I think he stopped because he got a different job and had to devote more time to that. And so I was like, well, I could take up the mantle of like old guy that plays video games.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. But yeah, I never really got around to either. I kind of focus more on family stuff. I've been spending a lot more time with my son, and because he's it's a sordid state of affairs. But yeah, I just felt like he's 13, 14, and this is the time that he kind of needs somebody, and at a time where his social life just dropped out from under him,
right?
I wanted to focus more time on giving my family attention, and
that's great, dude.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever blame you for that in their right mind.
No,
so that's what you chose to work on during the pandemic.
Right.
Hats off, dude.
I still write jokes. I performed every opportunity that I had to perform that I felt was a safe opportunity. But overall, that was like what was most important to me. And I just got divorced a couple of years ago, and so for me, it was like I let comedy fuck up a lot of things in my life, or my passion for it fuck up a lot. So I was like, I'm not going to let it fuck up my relationship with my son. And but yeah, like Dylan Flynn and I used to do a couple of different podcasts, and we actually had some pretty big guests. We interviewed Mark Maron and stuff like that, and Dan Harmon from Rick and Morty.
Yes, Dan Harmon.
But yeah, I asked him the other day. I was like, "Do you have any of those recordings?" And he's like, "No." I was like, oh, it's like it never even happened. But then I found the Dan Harmon one is up on YouTube. Somebody put it on YouTube. So
great.
You can still hear that. But
and I know he's doing Dylan Flynn, who also I've talked to him about being on this podcast, and I will have him on as soon as it works out. Play It By Year is his podcast, right?
I do stuff on that too. So I guess I've been doing comedy in that sense. But that is phenomenal. He called me and told me about it, and it sounded like the most insane thing that I've ever heard. And because he was like, "Yeah, I want to do this. I'm going to do this radio show on the internet, and every episode is going to be a different year, and I'll put together blocks of different type of music that were like relevant to that year." And I was like, "That sounds really fun." And then he goes, "But then also." I'm gonna play this character that's from Texas, and he's also a time traveler for the CIA, and he's trying to stop a cataclysmic event that's gonna end the world in 2021. It was like, okay,
all right, yeah.
But then as it started unraveling, like you saw that he had this vision, and it's fucking happening, man. Like it is. I really think it's a solid show. The ones that I don't participate in, I like listen live like a fanboy. You know, like it's every Sunday night at 7, and I'll like put a video game on that I could turn the volume down on, and I just listen to it like every once in a while I'll just like stop playing because I'm like, what is happening now? But it's fucking great. I recommend it to anybody. It's Duff Dixon on Mixler.
There you go. There you go, Duff Dixon. Yeah, and yeah. I had to tell him this too when I was talking to him, and Will address this whenever he comes on, but he was doing such a good job with his promotion that I thought Dylan Flynn was producing a podcast for a dude named Duff Dixon. And I told him that. I was like, great job, dude. I had no idea that was you. So,
and when you hear it, it's like hard to put to put Dylan's face to it. But because he plays this guy with a pretty heavy Southern accent, and I love it. I just think he's doing a really great job with it. And each season kind of focuses on a different character, and I think we're in the 3rd season now, and my character is the one that like this season focuses on. So we just did the last episode was like I had to do like some pretty dramatic acting. But it was really fun. I mean, it's a blast to work with Dylan, and he knows exactly what he wants, and he's like Clint Eastwood. Like he's like, I'm going to get it in 2 takes. And he's like, this is what I want from you, and then you go for it. And then if he has any notes, he'll just be like, all right, this is what I heard, and this is what I want to hear. And he's very clear about it, so you can just flip and do what you need to do. But it was really great. Yeah, super fun to listen to and fun to work on.
That's awesome. I will put a link in the description for sure, so you can check out Play It By Year with Duff Dixon, produced by Dylan Flynn and featuring Seth Milstein on what, just one season, or are you kind of throughout?
I've done a bunch of stuff. He has like one episode every season that doesn't have like a plot arc in it, like doesn't contribute to it. So I've been writing these weird characters that I call in. I had a character that was a guy who believes that Sublime is the best band that's ever existed. And so he was so he's a real bro-y guy from Orange County.
Yeah.
And then,
which you know well, I'm sure. Yeah.
And then, I lived through the 90s. So.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break real quick, refill the drinks, hit the bathroom, and we will be right back. Please enjoy this little bit that I wrote about a fake university called Academy for Karens.
Stay tuned while we grab a refill. The Man Room continues next.
Introducing AFK, Academy for Karens. Are you having problems fitting in socially? Do you constantly get thrown out of establishments because you're acting like a child? Is wearing a mask infringing on your right to contract a deadly disease? Then you should enroll in Academy for Karens today. At Academy for Karens, we nurture your natural ability to be a giant bitch to virtually anyone, especially those that are innocently trying to do their jobs.
That's why you work in a supermarket, you dumb
At our prestigious school, you'll attend lectures and interactive classes from some of today's most accomplished and revered Karens.
Man,
Please hurry! Mike! Mike!
I rebuke you all and cast you into the lake of fire in Jesus Christ's mighty name.
Not only will you gain a deep knowledge and understanding of who a true Karen really is, but you'll leave this hands-on training with the need to f*** up literally everyone's day.
You're saying I have to wear a mask?
Stop pulling your communist bull on me.
We have the most experienced faculty of Karens, notorious worldwide for their viral capabilities and their deafening screams.
What the f*** is wrong with everyone? What
Have a good day, Jamie.
No need to speak to the manager today. Academy for Karens. Enroll today.
Welcome back into the Man Room. I'm your host, Marcus Bridges. Thanks for being here with us tonight. Joining me in the Man Room tonight is Seth Milstein. We'll get right back to talking to him in just a second. Don't forget to hit us up on the website, www.themanroompodcast.com. Check us out on Spotify. I hear if you're listening to this on Apple that those 5-star ratings are really important. So hook us up with one of those. We would love it. And it's going to help keep this podcast going. So, Seth, we talked about it just briefly, but I wanted to talk to you about writing for Savage Henry, which is a publication out of California, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, out of Humboldt County, California. I don't know what else they do there.
They grow grass, I think. It's a grass seed capital of some sort.
No, it's Savage Henry. I refer to it as like it's like the National Lampoon for people who didn't go to college.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's just a humor magazine. They've been really gracious to me, and they kind of let me do whatever I want to do, which is exactly what I'm looking for in a publisher and an editor. But no, I love writing for them. Chris Durant had a lot of troubles. They just opened up a comedy club right before all this shit went down.
Dude.
So yeah, they had a couple of months in before the shit hit the fan, and so they had like a big Kickstarter thing, and they ended up getting some grant money to keep it going. So so I love writing for them. I love working with them. I'm actually going down there to do some shows in mid-May. I'm going to do a weekend there. I think it's the weekend of the 19th, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. So in like your articles and stuff that you write, like you said, it's a humor magazine. So do they just kind of let you like pick what you want and go? Do they give you a general direction, or how's that work?
They have a theme every month, so like I just did one that was the Mulligan theme, which is, it's a golf term. I'm not a golfer,
right.
but I know a little something about second chances. So it was, for me, it was, they kind of tell me what the theme is, and then I interpret that as I will.
That's awesome.
And I do whatever I want. And, I think their minimum is 400 words. And then I was writing for them recently, and I was like, I called the editor. I was like, "Hey, I'm at like 1,500 words with this thing." And he goes, "We'll just split it in two and do it like over 2 issues." And I was like, "Okay, cool." It's that type of freedom, and I think they trust me to create good content, and I try to do that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, obviously, if you're going to headline the venue, right? I mean,
right.
for a weekend, they obviously trust your stuff, and it's. For good reason, man. I've heard you do some absolutely killer sets, and I'm sure that it translates right over to paper just fine, especially like you said, if you've been spending some of this lockdown bullshit time just working on writing and making, I mean, it's got to be like anything else. Putting pen to paper is just like, shooting hoops or working on your putting stroke. Like, you just have to do it. Yeah. Which is why it's so sad, the state of comedy right now is like, there's not a lot of ways to practice. And I got to be honest, if you're enjoying the stuff that I'm about to tell you that I hate watching, then it's great. I'm glad that you enjoy it. But if I see another late night host try to do his monologue with no laughing in the studio, I'm going to tear my hair out, dude. It is so painful to watch Seth Meyers look into the camera afterwards like he's willing you to laugh. But that wasn't fucking funny what you just said. Like, I don't know if your writers aren't there or what the deal is, but Conan is... and Fallon to an extent, Kimmel from time to time, but Conan's really the only one I felt like has been funny at all with no audience.
Yeah. Well, Conan's just a monster. I mean, he's a funny person. Like, if you listen to his podcast, he's a funny guy without people in the room.
Yes.
He's going to be funny when he's in the bathroom by himself, And weirdly, I haven't watched any of those shows because the only thing that I've watched that used to have an audience that doesn't anymore, that has been consistently still doing it for me, is John Oliver, because his first show without an audience, you could tell he was doing like the classic waiting for the laugh, and then I think they just gave him all the right notes in between that first and second show. And the second show, he just stopped waiting for the laughs and just went for it and just trusted the material. And the material's great. He's got like some of the best writers in comedy right now. And so he's really funny, and that's definitely like more of a liberal tilt or whatever. I also love, have you ever watched Jesus and Miro?
I saw your Facebook post about it, and I looked it up today, and I've heard the podcast before. I've never seen the TV show.
They're great. They did a show for Vice for a while, and then they just got picked up a couple of years ago by Showtime. And it's two guys, and they have this woman that's off camera that's just like, hey, what do you think of this? And then they'll just kind of like rant about like whatever's going on, and then they'll show like YouTube clips of like shit that went viral, and they'll just make fun of it, and then they have a guest.
That's great.
And it's awesome.
It's kind of a little variety show.
Yeah,
hit all those bases. I love that, man.
Yeah, it's like a modern, and that's the thing is like everybody's like, well, we just want Johnny Carson. Nobody fucking wants Johnny Carson. The guy's been dead for years.
Right.
Jay Leno's practically dead at this point.
Exactly. Well, we thought he was going to be gone a decade ago, and then he came back, and here he is. And, hey, what do you think about this? It's like, I shouldn't be making fun of that guy at all. I don't deserve that. But I understand what you're saying, and it's just, I feel like one thing that 2020 has done for a lot of different avenues is it showed people that, like, look, this desk job 9 to 5 thing isn't something that has to happen anymore. You don't even have to leave your house. And you can be just as productive, if not more. We don't have to call each other on the phone. We can look at each other face to face and take care of this meeting real quick. And I think that that's kind of transcending all walks of life. Like for me, without getting into why I'm not working in the cannabis industry anymore in any fine detail, to be honest with you, after a while, you start to do something that you're not necessarily that happy with, and it just starts to kill you a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And when, I got, my wife was a severe asthmatic, so when COVID first hit, I panicked. Mm-hmm. And I did the whole work from home thing, and the company supported me a lot in that, and I definitely give them credit for that, because like a lot of other people, I had no idea what the hell was going to happen. But what I was seeing on the news every morning is if you go outside, you're going to kill your wife.
Right. Yeah.
And, it was like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. And then you start to, kind of feel like maybe this isn't what I need to be doing. Like, I don't feel like this is fulfilling. And so that's why I jumped into this pool. It's like, we'll see if we can make money off of it. You know, what do I have? A year? I've got a COVID year where everybody's going to be looking for something to do.
Right.
So maybe you get lucky, but
follow your passion. Yeah, this is that year where you get to do that.
Exactly. And bald guys don't chase their fucking dreams, Seth. And I'm going bald. Okay, so the hat is on for a reason all the time. I feel like maybe the late night talk show hosts, to bring the whole thing full circle, need to also realize that. And Conan, you see a little bit of an adaptation where it's like the shots are really close now. They're not super wide to show the desk. It's like you need to see Conan from the shoulders up, and that's it. We don't need the big set. And it's all in the name of evolution of everything. And as a race of people, we should probably use this as a learning experience, so that when the next one comes out, we don't all have to go into hibernation for a fucking year.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was another thing cancel culture has been a big thing in the news lately. And it's like, as a comic, part of me like wants to defend the right to say whatever the fuck you want. But part of that is that, like, if you say it and you work for this company like Disney, they're not going to want you to make Holocaust references. They're kind of Disney.
Yeah.
So And so it's weird because I'm kind of on like both sides of that issue. I was thinking about it today. I was like, really, the only thing more annoying than cancel culture is people complaining about cancel culture.
It isn't that ironic.
Yeah, but it's like, this whole fucking thing with Dr. Seuss. It's like I ran into a random dude at work, and he was complaining about it, and I was like, that it was Dr. Seuss's people but it wasn't like the publishers weren't going to put those books out anymore.
Right.
He's a cash cow. It's Dr. Seuss. He's been relevant for every generation of kids. But the company said, "Oh, wait, times are changing.
We're
evolving.
Yep.
That's what it is. Culture is going to evolve, and you're allowed to come with us if you want."
Exactly. And dude, the thing about cancel culture for me is I look at it and I think if you're going to come in and waste your time and your breath and the time it takes to put these thoughts together, and your two biggest gripes are Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss,
right.
You are so far from what actually matters in this world.
Right. And the thing to me that was funny is neither of those things got canceled.
Right. They did it
got
their own.
Updated.
Yeah, exactly. And who's playing with it? And one of the funniest jokes I heard is like, you guys realize Mr. Potato Head hit a lot of stuff up his butt for this entire time, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what the gender is.
The funny thing to me is that, Mr. Potato Head technically got canceled, 50 years ago because it used to just be the parts, and you would put them into a real potato, right? Like, the potato got canceled out of the potato head. It should be Mr. Plastic Head now.
Oh, man, it should be. I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point,
But yeah, I mean, I'm like, I think you have the right to, as a corporation, you have the right to back or not back anybody and any viewpoints or whatever. But at the same time, it's like I have things that I would never say on stage,
right,
or never say on a mic, just things that I think are funny. And I know that this friend of mine is going to laugh at that joke. So I'm going to tell that joke to him. And, but it's just discretion,
right.
It's like some things are just for us and some things are for the world, and then maybe the Holocaust jokes, you tone it down.
Yeah. And I mean, there's got to be a better platform for your Holocaust comparisons than the internet showcase board, which if you have millions of followers, your stuff goes straight to the top of everybody's internet showcase board.
Right.
And then you're the one that gets heard, and you kind of wonder, well, why? Well, because we talked about it on another podcast that I do, Tanner and Drew's Donkey Show, and I think it was Wendy Williams, if I'm not mistaken, was a TV talk show host, and she went out here just a week ago and was like, look, as it is right now, I'm not getting the vaccine. And she, cited a few stories of people getting sick, people dying, whatever the case may be. And my point to that whole thing was, you have to be responsible with your platform at this point in time. You don't have to go and say what the most woke people or all the cancel culture people want you to say. You have to understand that you just need to be responsible with your platform. And as Wendy Williams, maybe it's not the smartest thing to say that you're not going to get vaccinated, because millions of people might follow suit just because you're who you are.
Just because you're big enough.
And in the same news cycle, they were getting on LeBron James because he hadn't said whether or not he was going to get vaccinated yet. And LeBron James is Mr. I have a take on everything. So they're wondering why. And look, it's as simple as, maybe the dude doesn't want to get vaccinated, and maybe he's trying to be responsible with his platform.
Right.
And we should respect that, because everybody, the only thing they tell that guy to do is shut the fuck up when he says what he believes.
Right.
And then the one time he doesn't say what he believes, they're like, well, what's going on?
Say stuff now.
Exactly. And that, I feel like there's a lot of that too. There's a lot of jumping back and forth on either side of the fence to make sure that what you're complaining about is going to slide comfortably within your narrative.
Right.
And just argue the points that you are concerned about. And, I want to do that with this. Not that this is any huge type of platform, but I just want to be responsible with it.
Right.
We'll make jokes. We're going to have a good time in here. We're going to get boozed up. I mean, there will be times on this program that I will take in much more booze and cannabis than I should before anybody puts a mic in front of me, and I'm still going to do it, and it's going to be fun. But, the end-all, be-all is to hope that, we're not out here inciting violence. We're not out here telling people what they should do. You should know that you should be comfortable doing what you want to do in this country. That's why we're here.
Also, you're going to edit it before you put
exactly.
it out.
I'm
when
not
you're
fucking
sober,
stupid.
You're going to listen to all that shit and just be like, oh, drunk Marcus was on a tear. No, I like because I don't know. I think most people can agree that the Harvey Weinsteins and the Bill Cosbys of the world, we should cancel those people.
Yeah,
They did horrible things. Woody Allen, let's get that guy out of it.
Probably
let's stop
retroactively cancel those people.
Yeah, let's stop letting Woody Allen make 3 shitty movies a year. He's past his prime, like in the 80s,
right?
But you know, like I just read a thing that they're trying to cancel Steve Irwin, and I was like, guess who doesn't give a fuck if you're canceling him? Him.
Right. He's in that big zoo up in the sky right now.
I'm like, and also you're canceling him because he put his children in harm's way because he had his baby near an alligator in a clip or whatever. And I'm like, but what you're doing is that baby is still alive and you're canceling their future because those things won't get aired and they won't get residuals. And those are kids that need money, you know?
Like, and look at the love that their father instilled for them for wildlife. I mean, they're
right.
on all the late night shows in his stead with all those same animals. And what good would that do, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too. I say this a lot, and I hate sounding cliche when I say it, but 9 times out of 10, when you get in these, you hear these big, uproars, and this side says this, and the other side says that. Is it not logical to think 9 times out of 10 the answer is somewhere right in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely that more often than not that's probably the case, and because I think what we've lost in modern society is context and perspective. You know, I made a shirt when Trump first got elected. We made a shirt for this comedy show that we were doing that had an anti-swastika thing on it, and there were people that were just like, why is there a swastika on that shirt? And I'm like, I was like, okay, so let me figure this out. So neoconservative means that you don't understand that Black Lives Matter is not about Black superiority, and neoliberal means that you don't understand that an anti-swastika is not a swastika. Like, I was like, the extremes are just dumb.
Yeah, right, right.
And
they're getting further away from one another every day of the week too.
And weirdly, in a weird way, they're wrapping around the other side.
Oh no, the snake's eating its tail by now for sure.
Like I'm, I think most conservative people would view me as aggressively liberal, but I also fucking own guns.
Yeah.
Like people, like my liberal friends are like, well, he's a conservative. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, I want to shoot those guns while I'm attending a gay wedding.
Yeah, smoking weed.
Smoking weed.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a lot the same way, man. And it's I think one of the greatest travesties of our, kind of going back to when I can remember. Like I grew up, I was born in '84, so I remember the Clinton administration. Sure. I remember the Bush administration, and both of them, to be honest. And it's one of those things that I feel like going all the way back then, just painting people with a blue or a red brush. It's like you can't break down the nuances of either one of these parties. Like we can't separate from just the fucking ass and the elephant. Like, can we please think about? And that's why a lot, like, we talked about it in here just off the mic. Like it's got to be there's got to be a better answer that isn't the way we've been doing it for the last some odd years. And I was talking to some friends about it, and this is something I heard on Joe Rogan. Champion is like more of like a panel of people to run the country, like a panel of experts. Right. And then you go, well, who chooses the experts? Right. And I say, well, you probably have like a each state has like a panel for their state. And then one of my buddies pipes up and he's like, well, that's just the House of Representatives. I'm like, well, you don't need fucking 500 of them. Right. Can we pare it down a little bit? Like the more people that you add to this party, the more stupid decisions get made.
Right. Yeah.
So let's pare it down. But I mean, look, I don't think there's anybody in this country that could stand up at the head of that panel and take a new thought process and just run with it and have it be successful right off the bat. Yeah. Things are going to fall the fuck apart. And I'm here for it. I'll do a podcast while the sky is falling around me. That's kind of one of the cool parts about working from home now.
Yeah. I love the idea of like, let's start with just abolishing money.
Go back to bartering?
Something. Because once you take that incentive out of it, like once it becomes like you have to work for what you earn, then it's just like, okay, well, we've eliminated so much fucking bullshit. Because, I mean, I feel like 90% of our politicians are in the game because they want easy money,
Yeah.
you know, like they want to stay rich and they want to keep their friends rich, you
Yep.
know. And it's like, fuck that, man. And that's why, you know, what we were talking about, Mike, I don't think socialism works as a thing. I think that it's a good idea and concept, but it doesn't work as a form of government.
In practice, it's been shown multiple times over to collapse eventually.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, sure, like it's more totalitarianism that we've actually tried in practice under the guise of socialism. But the truth is that, like, you know, like my ideal government would just be like, hey, let's not have a government and everybody just look out for everybody. And that is such a simple concept that, like, anybody that's actually in politics would spit on you if you said that to them. Because it's just like, wow, you can't make people. And I was like, no, you can't make people. They would have to actually just do it.
Right.
And so you would just have to lead your community to be the type of place where people would want to help each other out, you know, because I don't think, you know, I mean, we've proved that welfare is probably not the I mean, it's compassionate, but it's not the best way to motivate people to make their lives better. But at the same time, you can't let people starve to death,
right.
You know, like then you're going into Stalin territory. So, I mean, and so that's where we are, is we need to find like that nice alternative where, like, if somebody's down on their luck, we help them out. But, like, let's not just give them money. Let's also, like, get them a fucking job.
Right.
Like, get them something
get
that
them
they
trained,
can do.
Get them
Yeah.
some skills.
Yeah.
Get them, I mean, there's...
And part of that is education is fucking crazy expensive, and it's elitist. I mean, education is racism at a certain point because of what, you know. I mean, you could take a guy from the projects, and you could take a guy from an affluent suburb, and they have the same exact test scores. Guess who's going to get the scholarship? You know?
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, dude. And you know, look. I hate to say this, but I was a beneficiary of that. I don't know who I beat out or anything like that because I never saw. But I received a presidential scholarship at the University of Oregon because I had a good GPA at high school I graduated with 40 kids from.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I didn't have like a Friday Night Lights treatment where they were passing me 6-packs at 17 and everybody was giving me an A because I was a star athlete.
Right, yeah.
But I was a popular kid in school, and I applied myself just enough. And I like to say that in that because I went to college and I was on academic probation in 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that should go to show you right there that I probably didn't really try as hard as I could and learn to apply myself when they were kind of giving out grades.
Yeah.
And when it came to time that I actually had to earn them, I lost that scholarship immediately. I mean, just poof,
right.
You know? So I probably took that from somebody that was more deserving, you know, but thanks.
Yeah, like I don't think you should apologize. That was a thing that was available to you, and you acted on it. Like,
right.
I mean, you did what any person would do in their life. But the way that was handed out probably could have been. We could redesign that system a little bit better, so that it does go to the kid who's going to work his ass off. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a scholarship to a boarding school that was like the chairman of the board of the Pepsi Corporation's kid went to this boarding school.
Wow.
I should not have fucking been there. But I got a scholarship to it, and I had to wash dishes. That was part of my scholarship, is that I had to wash dishes and do laundry for the rest of the school. And so it was definitely like a School Ties. You ever see that movie? It was like that type of situation. But then I got kicked out in like 2 semesters because I was smoking weed, and they frown upon that.
Yeah.
The chairman of the board of Pepsi doesn't want you smoking weed around his kid.
Does he know how good Pepsi is after you've smoked a bowl? Like, there's nothing that'll quench the thirst like some ice cold cola. You know
what? I remember that night very specifically, and we drank Dr. Pepper. So fuck that guy anyway.
That's why they kicked you out. It's like,
That's
man,
why, yeah.
you should have chose Dr. Pibb or whatever the fuck they call it.
What kind of sodas did he have in the garbage can in his room? All right, he's out.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. Well, you know, I'm looking over my notes here. I don't really have much else. I do want to give you an opportunity real quick before we go to plug some things. And I also, because we talked about something earlier that I didn't plug, that I did last night. I spent my St. Patrick's Day last night doing the first ever Twitch live stream playthrough of this podcast. I played
cool.
the episode with Chris Castles last night on Twitch. And every Wednesday, episodes for this will air Monday morning at 8 a.m. and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm going to go live on Twitch and play the episode live. I'll spend the first half an hour of the stream chatting with people on the mic and on the camera.
That's cool.
And then I'll go ahead and pull the camera and just be in the chat. And so you will be able to hear this both everywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as Wednesday night, 7 p.m. the week it launches on Twitch. And I'm going to get more stuff going on there too. I'd love to do some live stuff, especially if you're willing. I've got, Andrus and stuff like that that's willing. I want to get involved in that because I can't wrap my head around how fucking popular video game streaming is, and I got to have a part of that platform.
Yeah, for
regardless.
Sure. So we all play.
Exactly.
That's why I was like so pissed I didn't do a Twitch throughout this past year, because I was like, I played through like 6 games.
I got my time in.
I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla right now.
Nice.
Yeah, May 14th and 15th. That's the dates that I'm going to be at the Savage Henry Comedy Club in Eureka, California.
Okay.
And then I haven't locked in the date, but one of the last 2 Mondays in April, I'm going to be down in Medford doing a show for Nick Lanier.
Okay.
And he's kind of running the comedy scene down there and like actually bringing in some pretty cool acts and stuff like that.
That's great. And, he actually reached out to me, and I just unfortunately haven't had time. He sent me a bunch of his material because he wants to do the podcast. And I love that I, having somebody that I can vet him for me, that I don't have to go through and because that's one thing is like I feel like I have to be once again responsible with my platform. So everybody that wants to come on, I have to go on and do this massive thing of homework unless I already know you and you just get the call from me because I know it'll be good. So I trust you now. So or I trust him now because of you. So I'm probably going to give Nick a call and see if he wants to come on the podcast sometime. He offered me some time down in Medford as well. And dude, I got to be honest, like talking to you guys, true comedians that I know is starting to really scratch the itch. I think I'm going to get out there and start trying it again. And
we should, rumors are open mics are going to start up in Eugene in the next couple of weeks. So,
okay. Well, I'll be in touch with you on that for sure, because I'd like to come out and
keep you posted for sure.
Dude, if nothing else, just support the scene. Like maybe I might have run my course in comedy and I'm not funny anymore, but I'll figure that out quick if that's the case. But I definitely want to support the scene because I love what
we were saying earlier. It's not a thing where you just it's not like a frisbee where you just can like throw it or not.
Right.
It's something where you got to put a little time in. And but I've always had a great time talking with you on the radio and doing this. And I mean, you definitely know what funny is. And so,
thanks, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I think it would be a thing if you committed to it, you could definitely do some comedy stuff.
That's awesome. Any other shows you want to plug before that?
No. I feel like I'm going to get in trouble if I say no. I think those are the only 2 that are actually officially booked right now. I want to plug, there's a thing called A Little Treat that Jane Malone has been putting out. And it's a digital zine, and it's really fucking cool. And it's really hard to get the word out on it. But there's a website, a little treat comedy.com, I think is what the website is. And it's like a magazine, but it's all digital. So like you could like click on a picture and then it'll take you to like a secret YouTube thing that somebody did, like to accompany the artwork or the story or whatever. But I've been doing a lot of writing for that. I actually wrote like one of the biggest pieces that I've ever written that got published for that. And like amazing people have done work for it. Sam Talent did a piece for it for the first one. And then a lot of really great local people. Noriko Ott, I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's a phenomenal comic up in Portland. Okay. He's done a bunch of stuff for it. I can't even think of all the great people that are involved. But it's I haven't read a bad piece in it, and it's really neat to look at just because there's so much going on. And, you can, my roommate, Chaz Logan Hyde, made a board game.
That's awesome.
So like you can actually print it out and play it as a board game and stuff.
That's cool. It sounds like more evolution in the world of creative
digital media
content. Yeah, for sure. That's great, man. Well, we will share the link to that in the description as well. We'll make sure to put a link for the Savage Henry publication up there too. Yeah. And you got a website?
I don't have a website. You can check me out on Twitter, which is just Seth Mills, MILS. and that's also my Instagram. So
Awesome.
those
Check
are-
him out there. We'll share those links as well in the description. That's the Man Room Podcast, dude. What do you think?
Great. This was so much fun.
That's awesome, Seth. Thank you so much for joining me here today. We will
Yeah,
have you
absolutely.
back for sure, especially if you're going to bring some of that damn fine whiskey, man. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening. And post transmission.